Ram, are you there?
I am
Okay, I
here.
tried that video. Listen, I don't know what's happening with that video. I'm gonna leave that video alone. Welcome, everybody. Get in here, get yourself in. Get
Hey
in here,
guys,
people. Get in here, get
come
in
on,
here, get in here. Y'all get in here.
come
Go
on in
tell
this
somebody.
room.
Y'all get in the room. Get in the room. Go tell somebody. We live. Y'all go tell
Absolutely.
somebody. Get in the room. Get in the room. We have some amazing information for you guys tonight. Get in here. Get in here. Y'all get in here.
Click
How you
like
been?
and share.
How you been?
I, Today is the day. I'm excited. Today is an amazing day.
Today is an amazing day. You see me, I'm flipping my braids today.
I'm with my hair back and forth. Listen.
Whip your hair back and forth. Y'all get in here, get in here, get in here. Click like and share, you guys. Do me a favor, click like and share. Then come back and let us know you shared it. That's what we want you to do. All right, welcome to the Kitchen Table Talk, where no topic is too heavy
Or too light.
for our table. Venus, thank you for coming in. Thank you for coming in. Welcome. You guys, we are so glad you joined us tonight. Fix my light. Do I got enough light? I got some
You look
fabulous
bright.
light.
You look bright.
Yes. All right, you guys. We still concentrating on mental health. We are mental health all month long, and there's a reason for that. Um, it's just some really trying times right now. These are times that we've never experienced. This is all new to everybody. And not to mention, it's Mental Health Month, Mental Health Awareness Month. So we just want to make sure that we are all keeping our mental health in check. And so Rem and I decided to just kind of do a series on maintaining our mental health. And in doing that, we're dealing with grief and loss because we've been talking about various modes of grief and loss. And so tonight, um, we're dealing with what are we dealing with tonight? We are losing the loss of a loved companion.
Yeah.
We had Marty Sellers on at the beginning. He started us off and just kind of gave us a lot of tidbits about maintaining mental health. Then last week we had Debbie Chandler, who was talking about thoughts of suicide, and she was um, recovered from childhood trauma. So there is just all kinds of grief and loss that we have to deal with. And then you have those in the world today dealing with the loss due to COVID-19.
Right.
And I'll be honest, even I was in a meeting the other day, and the gentleman who usually chairs the meeting, he's usually up and bubbly and just and even his spirit seemed a little down and somber, which is not normal. I shared earlier this month that I had a little breakdown, a little semi breakdown. Um, After learning that a close friend of ours had been taken into the hospital due to COVID, and it just all started piling. And didn't realize how heavy everything was until that moment when I woke up, and it was like, oh my God, what is going on? And I just started crying. So yeah, I just feel it's important that we kind of check in every now and then and just like Graham says all the time, press reset. And why don't you explain what that press and reset looks like? Because not everybody may know what press reset look like. I want you to explain that later on in the show. Before you do that, I want to bring our very special guest that we have to help us to kind of deal with some of these grief and loss issues. Miss Laquita Suggs, she's so nice. I just reached out to her and told her what we were doing and where we would need some help, and she so graciously agreed to step in and help us because I'm no professional. And so I wanted to make sure we had somebody on our team here. Welcome, Miss Laquita.
Hello, how
And
are you? Hey.
I wanted somebody that, I invited Marty and now Laquita. I just wanted to make sure that we had some professionals on board because this is a serious topic and we do want to make sure that we are reaching people that need help. And so, yes, Miss Laquita, introduce yourself.
So my name is Laquita Suggs, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I also specialize in grief and loss. I've been in the field for more than 18 years, but I've been licensed for the past 15 years. Grief has always been like a part of my history, part of just, my personal struggles. But I also always placed the emphasis on it because I had a desire to help people, to help families. It started with domestic violence, and then it just transformed into just more tragic related death or any type of death. My mom was murdered in 2007. And so I really began to focus on grief and loss more, the recovery process, how to move from A to B, how to deal with being lunched all the way back to A, like it's just the beginning, and how to continue to go through, because it's kind of a tug of war, a pull and tug. You can move forward, then you move backwards, then you move forward, then you're stagnated all over the place. Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what Marty said the first week we had. He talked about you can be an A and you progress to C and then D and then you back to A.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
it's just a day by day situation, sometimes minute by minute.
Right. And then it doesn't matter the length of time because for me, it's been 13 years ago. And some days, not often, but there are some times where I'm back at denial, like it didn't really happen. It's not really true. And then I'm forced, to deal with the reality of, I haven't seen her. It's true. And that's the difficult part.
Wow, yeah. It definitely seems to be a convoluted process.
Yes.
Yeah. And what I've learned is there's no one right way to grieve.
Right.
At least that's what it seems. I haven't experienced serious loss like that. I think the closest I did have a loss of an uncle, and many years ago, and it kind of hit me all at once at the funeral, but that was kind of it. And we moved. I was able to move on, and to my knowledge, I'm not harboring anything. But that's what I learned. Sometimes you don't even know what you're harboring, right? Until it happens.
That is true.
Right. I actually, today is the 4th year anniversary of my father passing away.
Oh, sorry for your loss.
Thank you. And I have my moments. I have my days. Very far in between. Like, it's not many days where I am just really down and out, but I think I've learned how to cope and heal. At first, I was just coping and sweeping things under the rug, not giving myself permission to actually feel what I was feeling and saying, hey, it's okay to check out. It's okay to press reset, as Tina mentioned that I say a lot. It's okay. So I had to give myself permission to do that and understand that not everyone will be there to feel how I feel. Like, it's me that's going through this. And so I can't assume that you as my friend, you as even my sisters, those that's their father as well. I can't assume that they're going to grieve the same way that I do
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll be very disappointed, because of that expectation that we
Mm-hmm.
sometimes set upon other folks, like you should
Yeah.
get it. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's a little bit unfair, but
Mm-hmm.
we do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so true. The thing that I find that's a little frustrating today is that everyone wants you to let go of your grief and move forward from your grief. And that's difficult for a person who's struggling to even grasp the concept that that person is gone. So now you're telling me I can't grieve my loss because maybe it makes you uncomfortable. Or if I start to cry, you feel as if I haven't processed anything and I need to go to therapy. And it's just that I'm thinking about the person for that moment. And so let go is not really the concept for people who have lost someone significant, but helping them to move forward with the loss in a way that's healthy. That's the most beneficial, way to move forward. Not just let it go and then just wash your hands of it, because we can't do that.
Right.
So we've talking about various types of losses, a mother, a father, an uncle. Tonight we have a beautiful young lady, and she happened to look. She suffered a loss of a loved companion. So I'm going to bring her on, Miss Dominique Lyons. I don't know what happened to her. I guess she went out. Hi, Dominique.
Hello.
How are you? Miss Dominique Lyons has been so gracious to agree to share her story since we are dealing with grief and loss. And we're going to get into some different questions and things like that. But Dom, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Dominique Lyons. I currently work in the financial industry, but I also do have my own podcast. So I'm a host for Unapologetically You. And that's also been another process of my grieving, of finding different things and different things that I like to do as far as aligned with my purpose to help me to kind of get through. A little over a year ago, I lost my ex, March 2nd. And he was extremely young, 37, when he passed. So it was very sudden and was not expected. You lose a loved one. Everyone's talking about, you lost your mom, you lost your dad, and I don't know what that feels like. I don't. And I can only imagine if I lost my mom or my dad, how that would feel. But I will say losing someone that you love, that's your best friend, that you talk to every day, even when you argue, you still got that person's back. You might know more about them and they know more about you than maybe their family will, because you're together all the time. It hit me in a way I was not expecting at all. And, we weren't together at the time that it happened, but we were always still close and talked to each other. Like, that was my confidant, and we were trying to figure each other out. So when he passed, it like I said, I've never experienced a loss so close to me. So it really, for lack of better words, it tore me up. It tore me up. I still have moments where I'll break down, but I know it's a part of the process. It's a part of healing, and at some point you're gonna get there, but it takes time.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about how he passed?
He actually passed away of chronic alcohol liver disease.
What was that?
Chronic alcohol liver disease. So,
chronic alcohol liver disease. Oh, okay.
So like cirrhosis of the liver.
Yeah. So it's like with the type of relationship that we had, I'm not going to say I wasn't surprised, because we went through so many different things together, Actually, after his passing, alcohol was something that I participated in a lot, because it was like, dang, let me have a drink. Let me be able to cope. Let me do this. And it's like, even though I lost someone of that same thing, I'll be transparent. It's still something that I'm still working to get better in, you know, but I use that as a form or a mechanism to try to make myself be better or feel better. And when you're with someone for 6 years, you watch each other's games, you watch each other's falls, when you're going through something, when you're stressed out, when you can't eat, you watch each other go through that. And I think the reason why I chose alcohol after he passed is because I felt almost guilty, because this was my best friend, and not saying that I allowed for him to pass away of that, but as a friend, you check up on your friends. You know what I'm saying? You see something that they doing that's not right, you speak up, no matter if it might hurt them or whatever it is. And so I just felt so guilty that I didn't speak up, or if I did speak up, it wasn't in a way that made an impact, you know, or, you know, consistently having those conversations and trying to, I mean, I tried those things, you know, but they didn't work. So I just wish I would have been more persistent with my approach to help, because like I said, with him passing of that, it was no surprise, because I was seeing the certain things that contribute to that happening. Right. And no one wants to sit and have a front seat to watching the person they love pass. Nobody wants to have that. So it was tough. Still is.
Yeah. Have you given yourself any relief? Because it sounds like there's some blame. And anytime you have blame and you have guilt, that tends to intensify the grief that you have. So it makes the journey a little more difficult, because for some reason, we'll tend to plunge ourselves back into the grief when we start feeling better, because why should I be here? Why should I be happy? You know, that person is not here and they suffered. So we kind of want to make ourselves stay in the suffering.
I feel like I've been getting better with giving myself that relief, because at the end of the day, God had a plan.
Right.
And whether I understand it or not, it's not for me to pick it apart either.
Right.
I'm a God-fearing woman, so I know that sometimes God will step in and he is very intentional. And sometimes he will, you know, he took Larry maybe as a lesson for many others that might struggle with that same issue, right? You know, and so, and then at the same time, he probably didn't want his son suffering anymore. So my relief, how I take it is, again, you know, God makes no mistakes. And it happened for a reason. Maybe it happened for me to get mine together, you know, and to be more mindful of the steps I take and how I take out stress or whatever it is to get better with it. So I think that's kind of how I got that, relieving myself.
Right.
But so you say that you're talking about blaming, but he died of the chronic alcohol liver
cirrhosis of the liver.
Yeah.
So is that something you can see, or is that a sudden death or a quiet death? I mean,
it comes over time. And when I found out about it, I did my research to see what the symptoms are. So number one, you have loss of appetite. You have jaundice, I think that's how you pronounce it, of the eyes, the yellowing of your eyes.
Right.
And it's so funny. We had a conversation about health. It was actually at one of you guys' live shows, and we were talking about how women, we go get ourselves checked, and men are a little bit hesitant to go to their doctor's appointments and things like that. Right. And I really feel like if he would have went to a doctor's appointment, or he would have had that extra push from me, you know, because I would always be like, physical time, let's get it cracking, we gotta go, you know, but we weren't in a relationship at the time, so that, you know, checking up piece wasn't really there. I feel like if he would have had a checkup maybe 6 months before, it would have been something that would have been detected or known, you know, to be able, okay, you know what, I need to cut back, or I need to do A, B, and C, so this won't happen. But it does definitely come over time. There's other symptoms, but those were the two major ones that that stuck out to me as far as visually being able to see it.
And you saw them before it happened. Is that why you carried the guilt and you didn't say nothing?
I carried the guilt because we think he passed on a Saturday. I found out on a Sunday. The last time that I had an actual conversation with him, I will not forget Dominique loved to go to Volcano and have something to eat, and he was just on my mind. And I had just got back from a trip from Cuba, and I heard a song that just made me think of him, so I called him. But when we were on the phone, he didn't sound like himself, you know, and he actually sounded like he had an attitude with me. So I was like, all right, child, bye. You know, you sound like you a little tied up or whatever. And that's the thing, when your friends may sound frustrated, whatever it is, take that time to understand and figure it out, you know, because we had that conversation and we got off the phone, and little do I know that was going to be our last conversation. Because when I texted him the next day, which was Friday, I heard the J. Cole song, Middle Child. And he's a middle child. He has a younger sister and an older sister, and he loves J. Cole. So I sent him the song like, yo, dog, you hear this song? This is all you, middle child. And no matter what we went through, we would never ignore each other, no matter what. And I never received a text from him. And I thought about it, like, no, he ain't never texted me back. And then when I found out, I said it wasn't because he was ignoring me, it's because he couldn't.
Right. Right.
So, yeah.
That had to be said. So how did you after learning that he had passed, how did you start your grieving process? Or you know after everything was kind of done, how did you work through your grieving?
Well, first thing is I cried my eyeballs out. Couldn't stop crying every day. I couldn't catch a break. I surrounded myself and absorbed myself around the people that love me. My family, my friends played a huge part in helping me and making sure that I wasn't alone. You know what I'm saying? Like I have someone to talk to all of the time. I started a podcast. I think that helped, you know, with having different things to take my mind off of it, but things again that are aligning within my purpose. I finally took a drive to the gravesite about maybe 3 months ago, and it was so ironic how it happened because literally I live in Inglewood, and so he's at the Inglewood cemetery, and I'll never forget I was coming from the meat market, and something just took me to go there. Like I had no intentions of going to the cemetery. I hadn't been there since it passed. And I'm a firm believer again, you know, his soul is not there. So, you know, going to a cemetery all the time to see someone, in my opinion, it just, I know that person is not there. But something just brought me to drive there. And one of my friends, my good friends, told me, she says, sis, he's going to come to you. He might come to you in your dreams, whatever form it is. He's going to come at some point, and it's going to be when you're least expecting it. And I drove to the cemetery, mind you, it had been about a year since his passing. And y'all know Inglewood is huge.
Yeah.
And I drove to exactly where he was in the mausoleum. Didn't need no directions, nothing. Didn't make no sudden turns that took me the wrong way. Like I legitimately drove straight to where he was buried. And I said, well, I'll be doggone. Is this the sign? Is this the sign? And, you know, I just sat there and I just was in my thoughts and I talked it out. And at that moment, it helped me to release. It was almost like, okay, you know, he came to me. I almost felt like he brought me to go to where he was buried. And in that moment, any guilt that I felt, if I felt like I was a bad friend, whatever it was in that moment, I left it there. And although I cried and eyelashes was falling off, I felt so much better after. I felt like it was like a relief, you know. So I think, in my opinion, I think it's a great thing, even though I talked about it maybe not being such a good thing, or you know, the person's not there. It's just the shell. But I think sometimes it is a good thing to maybe take that drive or be led to have that drive, like I was led, and just have that moment.
Do you think that at that moment you were able to shift gears from coping with his loss to beginning to heal from the loss? Do you think it was at that moment where the shift began?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like that guilt that I had, I didn't feel it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no matter what anyone would say, I just felt this guilt, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
after it happened, I would tell my friends all the time, like, I'm gonna check on y'all. I'm gonna be more intentional with my relationships. I'm gonna be more intentional with reaching out and just listening, because sometimes I talk too much. So I'm gonna just be more intentional with my people. Because I'll call you and then I'd have ran the whole conversation. No, what's going on with you? Because I done talked so much.
Right.
So I said, I'm gonna be more intentional about just listening
Mm-hmm.
and legitimately being a friend. Because you never know when somebody might be going through something. So definitely that's when the transition for the healing started to come.
I know when I first start working with people who are coping with loss, one of the things that I try to normalize is their relationship. So you could have been in conflict or maybe not, getting along at that particular time. And that tends to be the thing that causes people the most grief because, oh, I shouldn't have hollered at the person, or I should have did this, all those shoulda, woulda, couldas. If you're able to just look at it more like, in relationships, this is what happens, right? Authentic relationships, this happens and it's okay. If I would have, allowed the person to do whatever they wanted to do, didn't say anything, didn't ever, interfere, then that relationship wouldn't have necessarily been the relationship that was authentic or one that was real. Anytime it's real, you have to say, okay, I have to put that aside because it was, I had to scream at my mom, for example, or I had to scream at my boyfriend. I was talking to someone who just lost their boyfriend and they said, we were not talking at the point that he died. And so we maybe spoke like maybe once. And that guilt of not being able to say certain things, because had I known, then I would have told you all of this stuff and I would have used my time with you differently. And because we can't predict, then we have to be okay with the fact that in order to have an authentic relationship, I have to set limits with you. And then I can move forward and then start processing just the mere fact that you're gone, because that's going to be difficult. That I'm not going to see you again. I can't call you. I hear that J. Cole song or whatever, and I can't say like, oh, hey, middle child, this is you. So I can have that thought and it bring me solace because I was able to release the guilt part of it. So you can release it and then you can pick it back up again. And that's a process. We let go, we pick up, we let go, we pick up. And at some point we get to a place where we can just journey and keep the parts that's necessary. Sounds like you're doing a good job.
Right.
Yeah. It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, for sure.
It sounds like she's kind of been able to handle it pretty okay. And I know I hear her saying guilt a lot. So, obviously there was some solid reasons why she felt that way or was feeling that guilt. But I think the fact that, because people do say they come to you in dreams, somebody that passed, they come to you a lot in dreams. And, maybe that, like Ram said, that was the pivoting moment. And so whatever that maybe that is of saying it's okay,
Right. That's good.
It's different, but anyway, so if y'all just joining us, we're talking about grief and loss, and tonight we're talking about surviving the loss of a loved one. If anybody have any questions they have for Dom, or any questions you have for Laquita, or any of us in regards to the subject tonight, type it in chat. Click like and share while you're at it. And let us know that you shared. Okay, so Dom, now you're saying that you started the podcast. Wait, did we lose it? Dom,
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get back to the.
This lady, she looking at her Instagram and her.
No,
your comments.
I see you.
Okay, there we go.
Well, now
can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can see yourself. So you did the podcast as a distraction, you feel. So that's just a way of like being distracted so that you don't have to deal with thinking about the grief portion of your loss or
Well, I've always had this personality. Like I'm a firm believer that when you're born, you are born and God instills you with certain pieces about you that is you. And it's your purpose, And with me having a personality, it's only fitting that I use my personality in order to create and extend my purpose. So it was number one that. And still at the same time, I felt like it gave me another outlet to create in order to show myself, opposed to maybe chilling, having a drink, doing A, B, and C. It allowed me that time. And it also allowed me time to find my happy. Because I feel like a lot of times when you're going through something, you're so quick to kind of shut yourself off from doing certain things. Oh, you want to go out and do this? Nah, child, I'm chill. I'm good. It allowed me that time to express myself in the best way I felt possible. With developing a podcast and sitting and shooting the ish. Everybody know I give it to you raw. It might not come out right, but it's me. And I can't help that. So why not set up a platform, have a podcast, and allow myself to just speak freely. And at the same time, I'm able to work through certain things that I felt bad about, or I felt like, was like, dang, like everybody's talking about 2020 is bad with the coronavirus. I'm cool. Let me just stay in the house because 2019 was, woo. That was one delivering a blow, a whole blow.
Yeah. Right. Dom, question for you. So what were are your expectations of your friends and your family members as it relates to you grieving? What are your expectations of them to assist you or to support you?
To allow me time.
Or are there any expectations?
The only expectation I have is to allow me time. I feel like grieving or not, people that are in your life or in your circle, they're in your life and they're in your circle for a reason, right? Because they see value in you. So even though you might be a little rough patch or whatever it is, we're human. Who doesn't have that? So my only expectation is allow time for me to grow, allow time for me to transition, allow time for me to be better. That's my only expectation. That's it.
And would you say that you received that?
I think so.
Yeah, for the most part. That's good.
And in relationships that I didn't receive that, I let it be known. Because one thing I learned is I gotta be myself. I can't come into certain things and not be myself, because when you come into certain relationships and you're going through something and you hold on to something, you not being yourself is actually placing you even further back. Look, this is what I'm coming with. This is who I am. This is what happened. And I know that maybe certain decisions I've made or things I'm doing probably might not correlate with where I'm trying to go, but this is where I'm at. And this is what I'm trying to do. So
absolutely.
If you can't receive it,
were you able to?
Go ahead.
I think I'm getting a breakup. No, go ahead, Tom.
Like if you can't receive it and it really affects you, then hey, because I got to keep going and getting better in order for me to be that whole person. So yeah.
And what tends to happen during the times that you can't move on, when you can't make it better, when you can't make yourself laugh, what tends to happen?
Sometimes I just sit and I might just have a cry session. Lately I've evolved myself completely underwater with bike riding. Because I feel like it's something I love and it allows me to clear my mind. So in those moments where I might feel like, okay, this is just too much. Like, you know, this person coming at me, did like I can't deal with it. I just go to my little happy space, which is on a bike, or I might go to the beach, let it unravel, leave it there, and just be free from it all. Like, be free of anyone's commentary, anyone's judgments, or even if they're not, just if like, because there's days where ain't nobody really did nothing to me, but it just ain't a good day. And I'm just like, I'm trying to do ABC and out my face, but I don't want to say that. So just go to a little happy place and be that, do that, and then come back when I'm ready to be fully with it. I think one thing that I've learned to do too, because it was something that was so hard for me, is number one, being okay with not being okay. Number two, also being able to take constructive criticism. I feel like a part of healing is to hear what people are saying, hear what they're saying, and accept accountability. Like, I think that's been a major part with helping me. Like, okay, you know what? Damn, I did mess up. And let me just be 100 with you. My bad. It wasn't my intentions or whatever it was. I think that's also been a major staple in helping me to just be all right. Everybody messed up. You know, it's what you do after you mess up that makes the change or makes the difference. So
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you for
I
even saying that. That means a lot to me. For me, I have friends or family members who have lost someone that was really close to them. And there were, you know, times where I didn't know what to say. I didn't know. And depending on the individual, their personality, that all plays a part in how I respond to their grieving, right? So I have a family member that the way that she grieved is, you know, she's real chill, but she grieved, right? And I can say, or I can just sit with her, or I can just send her a text message like, hey, just thinking about you, and that's fine. But for someone else, that may not be fine. That may not be enough. So then it puts me in a position of, I don't know what to do. So sometimes when we don't know what to do, we kind of remove ourselves, and that's bad. You know, so it's kind of like, what do I do?
And it's okay to ask the person like what they need. Is there some way I can help you?
I think that's
now, see, and that's what I feel, because that's the whole reason why I was doing this show, because like I shared with you before, we've had several close friends and relatives to have serious losses, and you know, the whole family dynamic falls apart because you don't know how to support them. And so I said, I feel like the onus is kind of on the griever to tell me what you need today, because it sounds like it changes daily. And then I know one of my friends indicated, well, wait, if I'm grieving, I'm supposed to tell you what I need. Well, yeah, I do, because I have no way of knowing. If I do it this way, it's not right. If I do it that way today, tomorrow that may be okay, but today not. It's on you to tell me. And that's just kind of what I've learned throughout this whole, you know, series, that and talking to everybody, that every day it changes. It's messy. You know, it gets very messy. Like I said, whole family dynamics is falling apart because they weren't there for me. That is the number one common thing that I have heard. So that's why when Ram said, you know, when she asked you that question about what does that look like for you, the number one thing I heard was they weren't there for me. Friends and family were not there. When the friends and family is like insulted, because we're like, that's all we have been, is there, according to us, right? So wouldn't you say, Laquita, is that okay to say, tell me what you need today?
Right. Just invite them to let you know what they need. Because sometimes the griever might feel a little, you know, put off if they have to come to you and say, oh, this is what I need. So if I have to tell you what I need, I don't really feel that you are necessarily supporting me. And because I don't even know what I need, because this is new for me, right? So you're going through this process and you have no way of knowing what your needs are, but then everyone expects you to inform them of your needs and then be okay at the same time. And so for the supporter, it's good to just say, you know, I know it's difficult. If there's anything that you need, let me know, even if you don't know what you need, and then start naming off stuff. You need me to go to the grocery store. You need me to pay a bill. You need me to call somebody. You need me to pick you up something. Like, you know, offer them suggestions, because they may not feel like, you know, comfortable saying like, oh, can you do this for me? Because people start feeling after a while like, oh, she needs something else. Like, you're not grieving yet, you know? So that's kind of the thing that, you know, makes you draw back, because people, they want you to grieve so long. And then after a certain point, it's like, okay, come on. I don't want to hear about that, right? But it's still real and fresh for you. And so then you start feeling like you're by yourself and that you're alone. And so now how does the griever supposed to go to anyone and say, oh, can you help me? Because maybe I've gotten on your nerve and you haven't told me. So it's good for you to just come and say, I know it's been 1 year, but 1 year is not a long time, because usually after the first year, that's when you enter into the real struggle of what not being with the person is going to be like. The first year is just kind of autopilot. You're going with the flow, just like filling air. And then year two, something about year two, it just automatically becomes year one. And so you get so confused and entangled. And then now I have to say, oh, let me let this family member know, girl, I'm okay. I don't need nothing. And even though you do need something, I need somebody to just sit, just listen, just pray, just let me cry.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I know earlier, I think, who said it? Was it Laquita? One of y'all said that the supporter, because it makes the supporter feel uncomfortable. It does, you know, that the silence. We're not used to just silence, you know, even in, you know, giving these podcasts, you know, a moment of silence is almost like death. Okay, no silence.
You gotta keep it coming.
We've been trained to, like, you gotta say something. My husband tells me all the time, just be quiet. He said a lot, but sometimes you're right. The silence is just everybody sit there and look. Just sit and look.
Right.
I think it's more so knowing that person or those people are there. Like we don't necessarily have to have dialogue about it, but I really think it's really a really sticky, slippery slope when it comes to both sides. Because if I don't know what to give you and you don't feel comfortable or you don't know what you need, we're both kind of stuck. And I know people have lost friendships, marriages behind the unknown. Like, I don't know how to, or we are in a position of giving, like Tina said, I'm giving you everything I know to give, right? And so when you tell me that I'm not giving you enough, now I may take the stance of, okay, well, I won't do that, right? And so now that's bad, right? So it's just so difficult. This grieving, supporting, grieving, it's just a lot.
Right.
It's messy.
Yeah, it is.
So many different types.
I think one thing that is extremely important is just being honest. Hey, you know what? I don't know what this feels like. I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here for you. Like, I'm not even gonna sit here to pretend. Like, people, one phrase that I don't like to hear people say is, I understand. No, don't tell me you understand unless you really, really understand. It's okay to not understand. Right. You know, because again, you don't know what that feels like. You have not gone through it yet. And when you do, I pray you don't have to, because I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. The way that you may go through it may be completely different with how I go through it. You know, and that's when you come in with that support and however you need me to be. Look, you made a great point. Like, look, sometimes I don't even know what I need. I can't even tell you. Right. I appreciate you for calling to check on me, but I don't even know right now. I'm trying to figure it out.
I know one time I heard this this lady, she said to me, like, I really don't know what to say because, you know, I'm not that educated or skilled or whatever. She said, but one thing I can do is I can sit with you. Yep. I can just come and be there. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's great. I would love for someone to just be present, right? Because, you know, they have this saying, like, it's an anonymous person who wrote it, like, when you lose your parent, you lose your past. When you lose your spouse, you lose your present. When you lose your child, you lose your future. So if I lost a spouse, then I lost my present moment, like how to be right here, right now with you. So that should be off and, you know, feel like a roller coaster and I'm off source and trying to get my balance. So what I do need is for somebody to just sit here with me and just understand that this is difficult and it's very real, right? And it's very hard.
Yeah, it is.
But I can get through it, but not right now.
What just hit me too, though, that since we're saying that, you know, because I'm all like, well, it's y'all need to tell us what you need. And it's kind of like we need to not take it personal.
Right.
Because saying that you don't even know, we both kind of in the same boat.
Right.
The griever don't know, the supporter don't know.
Right.
So stop getting offended. Just let it flow.
Right.
Oh, I made a okay.
And that's part of that expectation, Ram, that you were talking about. We have subtle expectations, even though we don't say them. We may not even know, but we do expect a supporter. I'm the one grieving. I expect that you would be here for me, and that even if you didn't know, you would be okay with just sitting in the fact that neither of us knows, and be okay with helping me figure it out too. Like, because it's all new for everyone, right? Because every day for you, Domo, is new. It's a new day. It's a new experience. And you're going to have so many firsts of firsts. And like, whoa, I'm dealing with this and he's not present. Or I'm going through this and he's not present. And so now I have to be like, oh, okay, how do I still keep him? I think maybe in your podcast, I don't know what you focus on, but maybe part of your podcast, you can really look at the impact of losing him, the certainty of losing him, and how that, you know, kind of shaped and reshaped you to who you are today. Because you said, like, before we started, that it's a struggle every single day, but for the most, you're doing great.
Yeah. Marion Sanders got a great question. I thought we should jump in that one. That one's really good and different. Does previous trauma have an impact on how you grieve?
Wow. Well, I'll just chime in a little bit. That's my friend. Hi, Marion. But, you know, sometimes something about grief and loss, and even if it's a breakup, even if it's a divorce, but specifically a loss, we tend to go back and we bring up everything that has ever happened to us. We start feeling it in that moment that we lose something. So the trauma that we experienced in our childhood or early adulthood is going to make our process more complex than someone who has never had a traumatic experience. And so we're going to not only grieve our current loss, but we're going to start grieving everything that happened to us at the same time, because it benefits us too. Like, you know, everything, this happened, right? And not that we're blaming the person who we lost, but our body just tends to feel the impact all at once. So you hit one pain, you hit all pain. So all of it comes up.
Layered. It's kind of layered. You begin to layer things.
Yes.
You put grief on top of everything that you may not have necessarily dealt with prior to this particular loss. Right. And it all becomes one thing in one pot. And so I could only imagine that, well, I've been through it myself, so it's more than imagine. I've lived it. When you are grieving and you haven't dealt with something else, it's not necessarily, so that emotion that you give out every day isn't necessarily the grief of the loss of a person. It could be, you know, like you said, something that you encountered, you know, years ago as a child, maybe with that person. Like for me, my father, you know, I go back over things that I've said to him that I wish I didn't have to say it so hard, or I could have said it a little differently, or whatever. But then I couple that into him no longer being here and not having an opportunity to say, hey, Dad, okay, I know I said it this way, but I probably could have softened that blow, you know? Or example, you know, I just purchased a home, right? So my dad was one who would come in and fix all these different things and build. And in my mind, this entire process, I've been saying, if my dad was here, I would have him do this and move this and change that, right? And then lo and behold, here we are today, the anniversary of his death. And I'm like, wow, if he was here, if only he was here, right? So it's just, it's so different for different people.
Yeah.
I will say with, you know, losing my companion, for me, especially like with starting and blossoming in new relationships, you know, I think about how the past was. Okay, well, Larry would have did this, or this would have happened, or, you know, this is my expectation. And I've had to understand that, yeah, those things did happen. We're not going to sit here and act like they didn't, but it doesn't mean that every single person is going to be like that. Right? Good or bad. You know, so don't discount them, or don't, you know, say, oh, you know what, because that person is not like that person. And that's been a major learning lesson for me, as well as, you know, speaking up. You know, when something's not right or doesn't feel right, say something. You know, a lot of times, like we talked about getting in arguments, like after, you know, someone passed, and you think about, oh, the argument we had. If I would have just said this, if I would have just did that. And again, I could ask you this, if this is a good thing to do, but I'm like, no. If I have something to say, I'm gonna say it to you at that moment. I'm gonna think about it first. I'm gonna figure it out, get my words right, because I don't want it to come out wrong now. But I'm gonna tell you how I feel, and I'm not going to be apologetic for letting you know how that made me feel. You know, whether, you know, because a lot of times within relationships, it's like, especially when things are going awry or something, it's just like, okay, you know, but just don't deal with it. Don't talk to that person. I'm like, no, I'm gonna talk to you. I'm gonna let you know how it made me feel, because I didn't do that before in the past.
John, I have a question for you. I'm gonna pop it up. But you're right that comparing that can get dangerous. But I think that would happen with any relationship. This little thing is moving slow. Let me just read it. Dominique, give me a few things that you continue to keep a clear head and stay on the better end of life. Slash happy. I'm not sure if I understand that question. Give me a few things that you continue to keep a clear head and stay on the better end of life.
Well, for starters,
I'm not. Jay Kinsey, if you want to clarify that, you can. We got about 5 more minutes before we start wrapping up.
And then asking for you to, if you can comment on what has been helpful for you to keep a clear head since the loss, and then like any other suggestions about like maintaining happiness during this period.
Well, for starters, my relationship with God. That's number one. That's on point. Everything else eventually. It may not come within the time that I want, you know, but it's coming. The best is yet to come. That's number one. Number two, I just think on the daily, working out. I used to be the type that would hang around the same friends all the time. No, you don't have to. Branch out. And it's not saying that you're, you know what I'm saying, oh, these but goodies ain't the bomb either. They the bomb. They still the bomb, right? But I think sometimes acquiring new relationships allows new, you know, things to grow like a tree. You know, you have new branches, new things to touch into, certain things that maybe your current friends, not no shade or anything, that maybe it wasn't presenting itself. So it allows you to, you know, your creative just to flow. So I think those are some of the things that have aided in me just like continually, you know, processing, growing. And I think one thing that is so important is that no one can judge your speed or your velocity of how long it takes for you to get there. As long as you're moving in a direction that is this, it's a marathon, it ain't a sprint. As long as you
Right.
as long as you're evolving and getting there. So I think that's what has definitely helped me. Working out too, because you know when you see your results, you be like, oh wait, hold up. You know, so
Right.
Right. Yeah. Dom, tell us what your podcast is. One more time.
So my podcast is Unapologetically You. We're on all streaming sites. You can check us out. Basically what our podcast is about, it's myself and my co-host Jay Kenzie. We bring up topics that y'all talk about, we all talk about, but we gonna tell you unapologetically how we feel. And sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, again, I got a mouth, so it come out and it just be so raw, but it's me. You know? And so I think that's what makes it live, is the fact that we're saying what you think.
Right.
But we, you know what I'm saying, we're saying it out loud. So I feel like it brings a platform to create awareness of, hey, it's okay to have your opinions. It's okay to have your thoughts. It's okay to say, this is how I feel. And this is how I felt about it. Because I feel like a lot of times I was a straddler opposed to picking, this is how I feel. You know, so you guys can check us out. We're on Instagram, our page, Unapologetically You. You can check us out on Spotify, iTunes, Google. We out here.
Is there a particular day that your podcast airs?
We record on Thursdays and we actually produce content on Fridays. With the COVID coming up, you guys have given me new inspiration of things that can be done in order to produce video and feeds. But that's generally how we do it. But we've been a little bit slower than usual because of everything that's going on. But it's fire. And we're about 10 shows in.
Very good.
Very good. Well, I
had a comment for you.
Go ahead.
Are you able to Marion's comment to you, Ram? She's telling you that she just bought a house and she felt the same way. Her father passed away. And the first thing she would say is, if my dad was here, I wouldn't have to wait on anybody because this would be done and this would be done. So she was relating to your story. Yeah.
And before we go, one more person. I don't know if you experienced anxiety, Dom or Ram, because we talked a little bit last week about what anxiety looked like. Because I was asking, what does anxiety look like? Well, Sarah wanted to know, can you tell me how to help with my shitty anxiety?
What?
Shitty. Yeah. So does that mean that it flares up when you don't want it to flare up, or something else?
Yeah, it's shitty, whatever it is. I don't know. Yeah, because I was kind of confused. You know, I hear anxiety all the time, and I was like, what is anxiety? And you know, Marion explained it. You know, anything that kind of impedes you doing a normal day-to-day activity or something like that. Be labeled as anxiety. So I don't know if I've ever really experienced. I probably have, just ain't paid attention to it. But
I've had anxiety before, and I feel like you just stop. You take a minute for yourself. If you ever feeling like oppressed and stressed, literally you take that moment and you take it for yourself and you own it. You know what? I'm having a moment. And that's okay. I'm gonna sit here and have this moment and have it for however long it is in order for me to come back and be okay. So I think that's just what recognize it, face it, don't ignore it, don't keep working through it because that's not healthy. Notice it, sit there and figure it out, however long it takes.
Yeah.
All right. Any final words, Ram? Anybody?
No,
well, we certainly. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to thank Dominique for coming on and being so transparent and available. Especially so new. That's pretty new. Recent, your losses. And so thank you for giving yourself the permission to do so, to talk about it. I know that that is too another part of healing, another part of your healing. Thank you for moving from coping to healing, because there's definitely a difference. We cope and we move forward in life as though nothing has happened because folk expect us to. And then we heal because we need to do the work for ourselves inside and then out for everyone else. And so I say thank you for being mature enough, for being brave enough, for being courageous to do this, to sit on this panel and speak to us about your loss. I salute you today.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and
This is the process.
I echo that for Dom and Laquita. You shared your story. That was amazing as well for you to be able to be transparent, because I did not know that when I reached out to you. So thank you for sharing. I mean, because to be honest, the way we say it all the time in this world of speaking, that your story is not for you. It's really for somebody else. Your experience somebody else journey along the way. So we appreciate you guys. We will see Laquita again next week, where we will be talking to another young lady who experienced a tragic loss. And so her loss is dealing with the loss of a son through violence. And so, yeah, that should be a pretty interesting conversation. So, Laquita, we'll see you back here next week. Dom, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We thank you guys. Next week at 7 o'clock, where no topic is too heavy
Or too light.
or the table.